Oligarchs, they own this company. And they tripled the stocks. And he's like, wait, why are these Russians like they're screwing us over? All of our stocks are going to be worth nothing.
Welcome to the Company Podcast. How are you guys doing? My name is Walter Yarmwood. I'm the host of the Company Podcast, and today we are interviewing my friend Andrew. Andrew, how are you doing, sir? You doing pretty good?
Yeah, I'm pretty great today.
Okay, that's really good. I love your vibe. It's very chill, very nice. All right, trying to match your energy. By the way, nice shirt. Who'd you get it? Who got it for you? Your mom?
Dude, I take that. That went straight to the heart, man. Yeah, my mom got it for me.
Okay, mom has great taste. I love that. That's awesome. Beautiful. What are you up to? Tell me his life.
Lots of reading, actually.
Ooh, yes. Yeah. Actually, today we're going to be interviewing Andrew, and we're going to be talking about the book that he's been reading. Yeah. What's the book you've been reading about? Can you want to share?
Recently, I've been reading this new book. It's called, well, not new, but a recent development, actually. It's called Red Notice. It's by a certain hedge fund manager known as Bill Browder. He's a big figure in the recent political sphere, but only to those who are very aware.
When did this book come out? How recent? How recent?
2014.
2014. So it's relatively new. Have some sort of okay.
This has relevance to when this book was released around a little bit after Russia dropped out of G8.
Okay. What is G8 for some of the people?
G8 is the global summit for the top. It used to be 8 countries. Now it's 7.
Okay. So Russia. Why did Russia drop out of it? What was that?
Well, because of a number of implications. The first being what I'm about to describe to you, and also its invasion of Ukraine, stuff like that.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, they also have a lot of implications, worldwide.
Okay.
So there's numerous reasons.
That's another idea for a podcast. Yeah. But what about your book? Tell me about how does this have to how does it relate to the G8? Like what is significant about this book that you've been reading?
Well, would you like to hear the full story of this Bill Browder?
Yes, I would love to.
Well, to begin, his father, he has a very interesting story, quite intriguing, I must say. His father began as the son of the actual founder of the American Communist Party. Now, this is a very funny concept, but this was back in the 20s. He was even friends with Stalin, in fact.
Oh, Stalin.
Crazy stuff, yeah. But he was the founder of the American Communist Party.
The Communist Party.
Right.
Okay.
He had friends in high Russian places, and so he and his descendants, for most part, were very liberal and they were highly educated individuals, very rich actually. They all graduated early, had extreme amounts of money, probably due to grandfather's political campaigning. He probably had a lot of money after that. Ironically, being the Communist Party leader. Anyway, they had a lot of money. They were doing very well as the liberal upholders of their beliefs. Anyway, so he was not treated very well by his family because he was the last child, so I remember. And by the time he was growing up, everybody else in his family had already achieved great things, and they didn't care about what school he went to. They just threw him into the basic public school. They threw him into whatever college he just wanted to go to. And so he, long story short, in high school, he pushed through it, despite lots of struggles with terrible treatment from his parents that he did not acknowledge. He didn't want him to know. He had a very bitter contempt against his parents. Anyway, he went to college, and he made a devotion to himself. He went, I want to be a capitalist. That's what I want to do.
Why would he want to do that?
He wanted to stick it to his parents, to his family. It's a funny beginning, truly, right? And that was his moral ground from the beginning. He really wants to stand up to people that really made the world like what he doesn't like, these apathetic people. So
was that the main motivator, or did he just want to really piss off his parents?
Not just that. Obviously, he, as a kid, especially in America, he probably desired a great amount of money. Given that his family is rich, right? He wanted to make his own profit, his own fortune, probably. So he pursued this out of that desire. So in college, he joined a frat. He went to one of the craziest party colleges in the United States, and he was
Step 1, join a frat.
Yeah, he was having a great time until
Step 2, profit.
Facts. Yeah, he was having a great time until his friend went to prison for robbing a bank to fuel his cocaine addiction. And after that moment, this guy, Bill, he went, no, this is crazy. I'm not a fan of this. Yeah. Zoom in on Walter looking at his phone. Yeah.
Just rob a bank for cocaine. Got it.
Yeah.
This is where we're learning facts, people.
This is facts. Anyway, so that was the moment he decided to change his life around. He got crazy GPA after that. Not too crazy, but, good for somebody who was never too devoted to school, especially in college. So he made it, and he decided to get really gutsy. He was like, man, if I'm going to be rich, I have to be applying everywhere to all these colleges. So he went from college to college. Nobody accepted him. He got, I think he went to Chicago, which is pretty good. He went to a really good university in Chicago for about a year, I think. But then he transferred to Stanford, and the way he got in among all of these either millionaire Asians or these super smart, old money kids, the way he got in was he used his very unique story and said, my grandfather was the founder of the Communist Party, and this, pushed him into Stanford. This really.
What made him? Was it because his father was communist, or was it because he started something? Was that what made him?
It was more, I think it was both like a different perspective and the fact that he started something. It's like he's kind of a historic figure almost. The implication of a guy that the American Communist Party. Like, how often do you hear about that?
Not very.
It's kind of important if you think about it.
Okay.
So, yeah, he got into Stanford because of that, and he worked hard, and he knew that from a certain point, he knew that he wanted to pursue finance. So then he started applying everywhere. He'd go to J.P. Morgan. He'd go to all these firms internationally. He ended up moving to London, by the way. I'll get to that. But he ended up, going to all these different firms. And he would for example, his first interviews were like, let me start off with J.P. Morgan. He remembered he was just this little kid, fresh out of college with like financial advisory, like something, business degree. And he gets there and he sees these like the Chads and the Chips, like the Chips and the Chads and the Brads of the finance world. These guys in these expensive suits, the red suspenders and Rolexes.
Heck yeah.
And he's intimidated by all these like old money, just like these absolute frat bros that he wished he could have been like a long time ago. But he realizes very quickly this is not his goal. Like that these people aren't really meaning anything. They're just rich, not really because of what they accomplished. He understands that to work for a firm and be one of these guys is not at all what he desired.
It's not something he desires.
Yeah.
What did he want to desire?
He desired, well, for one, he desired like a very substantial amount of wealth. I think from the get-go, he really wanted to start investing. So first of all, he really wanted to work in Eastern Europe because of his roots there. For example, his parents had like cousins in Eastern Europe.
They had relatives over
yeah,
there? Okay.
And he was loosely related to Eastern Europeans. So he really wanted to work in Eastern Europe. So first off, he went to go work for John Maxwell, which is its own story, its own scandal, which is one of Britain's worst like financial scandals in history, especially in the 90s. This was an explosion of fraud. He went to go work for a guy named John Maxwell, and there he went on his first ever.
Who's John Maxwell? Like, who's this guy? Like,
I'll fill you in. It's a little bit irrelevant to the book itself, but he was a I think investor and telecommunicator, and there was only 20 private deals ever made with the Soviet Union, and he was part of 3 of those.
Oh wow!
Which means he was a
Pretty
very
big
big like, very big like networker. He made a lot of money basically with foreign relations. So he moved to Britain to work for Maxwell, and he went to Poland right as the Eastern Bloc was disintegrating, right before the fall of the Soviet Union. So he got there, and he was tasked with, basically he first advised companies on how to increase their wealth, like literally like their value, how to evaluate their wealth so that way they're not undervalued whenever they're sold, because everything is becoming privatized now with the Soviet Union, falling, disintegrating.
Yeah. So basically, everything in the Soviet Union was owned by the government.
Yeah.
So no one had no perception of the value of business there.
Right.
And going into there, people are just acquiring these businesses, and they don't know the value of it.
This is a big theme with his like desire to work, is that he said he landed, and it was like the 1800s. There was like cattle like carrying wagons.
Yeah.
And from the second he touched down, all of his coworkers got back in the plane and sat in the air-conditioned seats, and they were terrified. But he, with the weird smell of roasted pork and dying animals, he just knew this was his place. This is where he wanted to work, because he knew there was money to be made here. So then he got to work. He made his first ever deal in Poland. He's like, wow. By the way, he invested into a company there, into these buses in Poland. It's like the national bus company for Poland. They were horrible quality, the worst customer service in the world, I think. But he somehow made them valued more than what they were supposed to be worth, and he made them a good deal of money. And he actually invested in them when they were worth nothing. And that, I think he even said that was good. That was close to like a maybe 20 times increase. That was his first ever investment to Eastern Europe, and that's when he knew this is what he wanted to do.
So he invested in the bus. How much money did he invest in, and
This
how
was
much did
his
he get out?
savings. So think about it as more like he's a young guy, not too much cash, but he just knew in the bottom of his heart, I'm going to put everything I have aside and invest into this, just out of a personal desire.
So sometimes when you feel like in your gut feeling, you get that gut
Yeah,
feeling, and you know you have to invest.
This
in
is a
stuff
good
like
lesson. This is a good lesson
Okay.
that if you feel something really strongly and there's evidence to support it.
You know what? I agree with that, especially in like the age that we're in. If you're a teenager, if you're in your 20s, approaching your 30s, this is a time where you have to be risky. This is where a time where you have to
Especially,
take on not unnecessary risk, calculated risk, because what do you have to lose for? There's opportunity out there. If you're successful, you're going to reap the success. If you fail, you can go back. You have still family.
Exactly.
You can go back to whatever you are, but you don't have you're not obligated or tied down to anything. So it's good to go and take these risks.
It's good not to destroy your family with these risks.
True.
Which happens many times.
Good thing I don't have a family.
As we know, yeah. But
Okay, continue.
anyway,
Continue.
so from there, he begins his journey through Eastern Europe.
Okay.
As he is about to go on another contract for John Maxwell, he dies of a stroke, I think it was. Now, this is one of the biggest scandals ever in like British finance.
Bigger than what's that guy? He like took made
I know exactly what you're talking about. No.
George Soros.
Yeah, no, this is
Bigger than that?
This is different.
Okay.
Anyway, so I can go into detail. Basically, John Maxwell, his sons, right after he died, they liquidated all the assets and stole the money, but didn't tell anybody and did it in a really stupid way. I think they were both. I think they were both like charged with it, which maybe they killed him, but that's for a different day. Anyway, this is a whole nother discussion. This is crazy stuff. Anyway, John Maxwell died, and this is when the whole company exploded. Now Bill Browder will go work with Salomon Brothers, which used to be a huge Wall Street firm. I think they're done now. I think they collapsed in 2008. Thanks, Bernie Madoff. Yeah. Cool stuff, man. Cool stuff. Anyway, so he went to go work with them, and he started doing contracts, and he was the only man crazy enough to go work in Eastern Europe. He had to make, in order to keep working for Salomon Brothers, he had to make 5 times his salary. So that's a lot of money.
What was his salary?
He never specifies in the book.
But probably 5 times that. So he had to go out there, make it for his company 5 times the amount, and if he didn't, he'd get fired? Was this a difficult task to accomplish?
This is 80s, 90s business. They're going to kick you out if you don't make money for them, right?
Okay.
And this is high finance, too. They're making a lot of money. They pay these dudes a lot. I understand it. So he gets a call. First off, to preface this, he wasn't getting calls for weeks. He was be sitting in his office as his friends are making millions and just dishing out their salaries. He's sitting in his office with no calls, nothing in his notes, trying to figure out how to make money. Suddenly, just as Russia begins privatizing all of their industries, he gets a call all the way from Murmansk.
Where's that at?
Basically, the edge of the earth in Russia.
Is that like more north?
Yeah, very far north.
Circle?
Like, give you an idea of where it is. Far above St. Petersburg.
Oh, so there's
just basically directly above it. Literally the middle of nowhere. When you think of like just frozen hell is what Murmansk is.
Got it. Okay.
Just Russia. And he gets a call there to go evaluate some prices for a Russian, I think, shipping company for international shipping. So he goes, they fly him out there in this garbage Aeroflot plane, which they're still bad today. They don't want you to know that though. They fly him out in this garbage Aeroflot Russian plane. He thinks he's going to die the whole time as the whole plane is held together by zip ties and duct tape. He lands...
just like all our cars.
Yeah, he lands he lands on this pothole-covered runway, and he thinks he's going to die. He gets off the plane. It smells like tobacco and pork grease. And these guys in cheap polyester suits come up and speaking in horrible Russian accents and say, hey, can you We need you. We're so excited
I'm
to
here,
see
my
you."
friend.
Yeah.
We have good business for you.
This is so exciting. This is the first American
Come here,
ever.
drink vodka.
They go over there, and he goes to evaluate their value of their company, so that way they can figure out whether or not they should buy up 50% of a stock in this ship company. So he goes, and he's there, and he's like, he's there to buy 50% of this company for I think $5 million. And he goes, first things first, basic level, not even doing any math. He goes up and he's looking through the docking yard, like the shipyards. He's going, well, your company's valued at $5 million, or this 50% stock is valued at $5 million, and I see there's about 20 ships here. How much is each one worth? And all the Russians are just thinking, they're pondering for a quick moment, and they're getting their notes, and they come back, right? And then they're like, well, this should be maybe like 20 million per boat. And he's thinking like, hold on, this is interesting. Why is it 20 million per boat, but the company is valued at 10 million? This is strange. They have like, what, 25 of these boats? And he goes, how much are these boats worth in total? And they go, we don't know. We've never done the math. These people didn't know how to do the math.
So how many boats were there?
There was like 25.
And each one is 20
And each
million.
each boat in Soviet Russia back then, each of these boats was like, I think it was only maybe 5 years old. Brand new
boats.
ships.
So they're selling a company for almost 50% of a $10 million company, which is $5 million, and they're selling 20 boats, 25 boats, and each boat is worth $20 million. So this is a $2 billion value.
Crazy.
$2 billion valuation for only $5 million. That's some crazy
Ridiculous.
money right there.
And you think, like, how do these people not understand the money, the value?
How don't they
Yeah.
understand that? I don't get that.
Yeah.
Like, you sell one boat and it's worth easily cover your
Right.
company 4 times.
They probably feared, realistically though, everything before the fall of the Soviet Union was state-run. They probably feared losing everything. They feared the free market because it didn't make any sense. They're like, selling things?
What is that?
Bruh, like, that's crazy. We don't want that.
So communism doesn't work.
Yeah.
Prove it.
This is concrete proof that communism destroys your concept of anything that makes sense. But anyway, so he advised them, yeah, buy the stock, guys. This is money. You're going to make upwards of like 900 million in profit from just buying this stock in maybe 10 years. And this
Bitcoin,
Bitcoin's a bubble, bro. We'll go there later.
Tulip Mania, what?
Tulip Mania. It's a bubble, bro.
Yeah.
I'm telling you.
Hey, watch out. Bitcoin's going to be the new thing, dog. All right, continue.
Anyway.
Focus.
By the way,
focus.
do you guys know one of our friends was actually advised to run a Bitcoin hedge fund? It's crazy.
What happened with him?
Dude, it's crazy, man.
Probably shot himself.
I'm telling you, man.
Too much
I haven't heard
pressure.
of him in a while. Anyway.
He's probably escaped to Dubai on his Ferrari jet or
Yeah,
something.
this is probably what he's on.
He's just
these
chilling
days.
over there.
Anyway, as we were talking, so he saw this opportunity, and he knew that it was crazy money. But he was really sad. He even said in the book, he's like, man, I wish I could partake in this deal. I'd be a millionaire in seconds. But he goes, that's when I knew I'm going to start dealing in, Russian business. So then, after that, his next business venture for Salomon Brothers, now that he's made a ridiculous, like I think they see his returns for the business he's made for them. Oh, actually, no. This is later in a second. So he comes back, and everybody's like, wow, you made good work over there, Browder. Bill Browder. That's crazy. Keep it up. They don't really believe him, though. They still kind of mock him. Then he finds out that everything in Russia is being sold as vouchers because of the privatization. Basically, each citizen in Russia got these little vouchers that were worth this much amount of real estate, whatever value the government.
Okay.
Basically, Browder proposed that since they're super undervalued, these vouchers were literally given away for free by citizens. Like, if you had like sala, like pork on you, or like a bottle of vodka, people just give you this voucher. These vouchers
Really?
today are worth like maybe like upwards of like 600 times their
So
value.
basically, they took up the Soviet Union. They all divided into these vouchers and their valuation of what the Soviet Union was,
This is
and they
probably-
just handed out to people
This is
randomly.
ironically probably what communism theoretically should have done in the first place. But we don't talk about that.
Are they still in circulation now?
Probably not.
Probably not.
Probably.
There's no value to them.
Yeah, no, they're value, but I think they've all just been like redeemed, literally.
Redeemed.
Like
Okay,
they've all
they're all been used.
up.
Okay, so I can't go there and.
It was a very temporary solution. But anyway, they bought up all these vouchers, and well, he went to his business heads and he goes, guys, I need this much money. I trust you. I promise you, I'm gonna make us all. I'm gonna make you millions. This is $1 million, proposal right here. He goes to like 7 meetings. He convinces all these high-level guys, and they're like, okay, we'll give this dude a couple million, whatever.
Just whatever.
See what happens. So he goes to Russia. He buys up all these vouchers. And in long story short, their value skyrockets, 600 times their value.
Wait, why did they skyrocket?
Because
people start realizing
because
the
foreign
value
investors
of
like George Soros, for example, actually,
Got it.
they started seeing the value of Russia. This is why you soon realize that old money isn't as impressive as, or the new money that we recognize, that like the billionaires that we know of today. It's not that impressive if you really analyze it. They had connections and they had the money to start with to make themselves more rich.
That's interesting. That's really interesting.
So anyway, he sold it and he's made Salomon millions. And so obviously he wasn't getting any of this money because he's paid off a salary. But everybody internationally knows about how important this dude is, right? Mm-hmm. And now now that everybody knows, like billionaire investors, they see this guy, whoa, this weirdo in Eastern Europe is making this company like millions. I like this guy. So then, long story short, he quits Salomon Brothers. I can go.
Why does he quit?
He quit because he wants to start his own hedge fund. Investing into Russia.
Yeah, everyone start your own hedge fund.
I could go much
millions.
farther into detail onto like how he quit, but it's just not worth it. Basically, long story short, he literally saw, and even his business partners quit alongside him. By the way, his business partners saw like, okay, this is our own money.
Did he have any way that he resigned? Did he set his office on fire? He just walked away.
Because at this point, he's made Salomon so much money that him quitting is like, all right, we like you, man. He was connected to them, I think, even to this day. Like, people who work for him now are like his best friends from all the way back then.
Okay.
Anyway, he quits, and he goes, and he starts seeking out billionaire investors. His first one is this guy, I forgot his name.
Walter Yarmouk.
Walter Yarmouk. You already know.
Yeah, I already know people.
His name is Billy. I like to think of him looking like Benny Hinn, if you know who that is. He kind of does, though, by the way. I've looked up a picture of him.
Maybe we can have a
all
picture
of these. Now I'm going to start talking
video.
about the Israeli old money now. These guys are ex-Mossad, crazy money, ridiculous.
Ex-Mossad. What's ex-Mossad?
Mossad is the Israeli Defense Force, like their special forces.
Is it kind of like the Black Ops kind of?
Yeah, it's like their special force. But like this is like their highest royalty. Not literally, but their business royalty. And they start. His first one is this Benny Hinn guy. I'm gonna call him that because I don't know. I don't know his actual name. I forgot it. So let's say Benny Hinn. He calls him up. This is a funny analogy. Benny Hinn. He calls him up and he goes, "Hey, I heard you made Salomon millions. You want to work with me?" And Benny Hinn, by the way, is not in any way. I'm gonna call him Benny.
Just call him Benny.
Yeah, just call him Benny. Benny is not in any way associated with hedge funds in particular. And so Browder sees that he's a billionaire, Israeli. But he goes, he really doesn't want to say this. But he goes like, look, man, I respect you and I really appreciate this interest you've taken in me, but I don't think you know what you're talking about. Like, he says this super kindly, super respectfully. And he respects the worst response ever. Benny just goes, okay. Benny just goes, okay, I'll get back to you. Like, in this way that, like, at this point, Bill expected for him to never call back again.
Is it kind of Is it kind of like right now when people send a long text and you just reply with the
K,
or the pool? What's the game with the pool game?
What is it? 8-ball. Or it's like somebody ends a call like, okay, talk to you later.
Disrespect.
It's like, so he thinks that he's totally pissed off these Israelis, but he's wrong. Next day, the guy calls back even happier, more excited than ever. He goes, Bill, I've got the biggest investor in the Middle East right here. This is Edmund Safra, and Bill like goes insane. He's like, what?
Who's this guy? Who's Edmund
Safra? We don't know of him now because he's dead, and his fortune has literally been like distributed among his many investments and his many companies.
Okay.
But basically, he was one of the biggest Israeli billionaires. He owned Republic Bank in New York. Is that still a thing today? The Republic Bank? Probably. It might have failed during the 2008, But like a lot of these companies that I'm talking about did, by the way, most of them did fail like that. Anyway, Edmond Safra, he invites Bill Browder to Nice, France. Anyway, Bill knows nothing about like what is going to happen. He just goes, and when a guy like Edmond Safra asks you to do something, you do it. You do it because if a billionaire is asking you something like that, you take advantage of it. He flies to Nice. He takes a sick day. This is, by the way, he was still working for Salomon. I'm pretty sure he quit right after this. He took a sick day off, pretended like he was sick, flew to Nice on his own money, right? On his own money, met up on the most expensive shoreline, most expensive like part of real estate in France. He pulls up to the dock, and there's this big yacht sitting there, and Benny is at the top of the yacht in this wearing like this like 3 buttons unbuttoned swim shorts. And Bill is in a suit, in a dark suit, and it's in southern France. It's like 85 degrees,
and he's
perfect
wearing
weather.
A suit, and everyone's like,
everybody in France is these like millionaires and like lavish, like just chilling, tan, good looking, and he's just walking around in a suit.
Business suit.
And Benny goes, Bill, get on the boat. I'm gonna take you for a spin. They just go zooming around. Basically, Monaco is what if you don't know what Nice is. Is basically, just think of Monaco. They're just zooming around, enjoying it. And he's telling him all about what Edmond Safra wants Bill to do. So they pull up back to another private dock. Then there's like 4 Maybachs. The Mercedes-Benz, Maybach, Maybach. There's like 4 white Maybachs waiting for them. They get inside the car, and they drive up into the mountains. This is the most expensive real estate in the world. And this is, Edmond Safra becomes his biggest investor, basically, long story short. But he peels up to this huge house, La Leopolda. It's the most expensive house in the world at the time. 714 million was the valuation. Built by the Congolese for King Leopold II.
Oh my gosh.
Dude, that's crazy. That's
crazy.
Pull
it up.
That's insane, right? He pulls up. It's 85 degrees outside. There's men in full black body armor, no skin showing, Uzis and Israeli flags on their armor. And he pulls up and he goes inside, and he waits there for like 20 minutes. And him and Benny are just chatting, waiting in like the most expensive room in the world. And suddenly Edmond Safra shows up, and Bill specifically mentions like this guy. There's rich, where you wear like name brand clothing like Polo, Supreme, swag, but then there's a degree of rich. Adidas. Yeah. There's a certain degree of rich where you're so rich that like everything about you, not even the way you dress, just the way you compose yourself, it screams opulence and wealth. And this is what this guy was like. And so he walks in this Italian shirt, like $1,000 trousers. He just sits down, lounges on the chair, and he goes,
I can relate.
Tell me a story, Bill. So basically, long story short, Bill tells him his investing plans, which companies he's interested in. And this whole time, Safra is not even listening. Gets on his phone, he's texting. Yeah, that's cool. Yeah, I like that a lot. Benny, listen to him. Then in the, I'm thinking maybe 2/3 through his explanation, he goes, thanks, Bill. Have a good day. I got to go. And then Bill is panicking. He's like, this is crazy. Benny goes, trust me, this is the best meeting I've seen in a long time. Long story short, he becomes a billionaire investor. He gives him $25 million to start a hedge fund. He goes to Russia.
$25 million.
He goes to Russia, starts investing in Lukoil and all these crazy, undervalued companies. And long story short, he makes Edmond Safra, all of his other investors, he makes them lots of money. There's so much more detail we can go into. His story is crazy cool. But anyway, he pissed off a lot of Wall Street guys, by the way, in this process. He learned that...
I can imagine.
Yeah, he learned that if you're investing in Europe, you want foreign investors. People on Wall Street just want your money, not your talent, back then especially. And so he found it a really great privilege that these Israelis want to work with an American. Like, can you imagine that? Back then, business, especially in Europe, even today, even in Saudi Arabia, even today, is done all through connections, royalty, families, you know. It's not done like the way this guy did it, and he was lucky. Anyway, he makes millions for Edmund Safra and all the other investors in this hedge fund. His hedge fund is booming. Suddenly, he invests into an oil company with crazy, crazy profits. His values are soaring. His whole team is prospering. And then suddenly, the company he's investing in has decided to triple its stocks, which in the world of stocks, this is ridiculous. Like,
what does that mean when they triple? Did they just? Can you explain?
Basically, like they're devaluing the stock. Each one is now worth like a third.
A third of what it
once
okay.
was.
So if there was like a million shares, there's now 3
which
million.
means the valuation for the company goes down. Which means everybody associated with the company goes down in price.
Why would they do that?
And now this is super funny. Now the reason why they do this is because back then all of these companies were owned by oligarchs. The guys who in the Soviet Union, often like the sons of like government officials, whatever. They clawed their way to money, basically. They killed, they stole, they robbed, just to taste true capitalism, which is what everybody was, like, craving. Well, at least these people, the people of their caliber, were craving money and capitalism. This is what, they had the drive to kill people and pursue, like vanity more than anybody else in the world at the time. Anyway, these oligarchs, they own this company. And they tripled the stocks. And he's like, wait, why are these Russians like they're screwing us over? All of our stocks are going to be worth nothing now. We're losing millions. And the Russians, they go up to the head office, Bill Browder himself. He goes to the head office and he goes to their lawyer and he's like, guys, why are you like tripling the stocks? You're making yourselves less money. And the lawyer looks him dead in the eyes and he's like, because we want you to suffer. That's crazy.
Why?
These Russians, they didn't want Bill Browder making money.
Why would they do that? What's the
They
whole
hated foreign
point?
investment at the time, especially the oligarchs.
They hated to a point where they made themselves suffer?
Yeah, there's a really funny analogy that he puts in the book, a really funny story. He goes, in Russia, there was a village. In this village, the merchant came by, and he was talking to a peasant. And he goes, okay, I'll sell you these things, but for everything I sell you, your partner gets half. The peasant is mad. He goes, well, poke my partner in the eye. Right? So he goes, this is the logic. His Russian driver, Alexei, he goes, this is how everything works in Russia. They want you to suffer even if it's at their own expense.
Dang, so they really just
hate
him.
this guy. Anyway, he makes nothing is done in Russia like he did it. He held a press conference, unheard of in Russia, absolutely unknown of concept. He holds a press conference, accuses them of fraud, and completely shames the whole company, puts the oligarch in this great embarrassing predicament.
Okay.
He basically made a big fool out of him. And this is when Putin realized that he can abuse the oligarchs. He realized, hold on, if some American can control them, I can. So now Browder has a degree of confidence. He just literally won all of his money back by pursuing an oligarch, which is unheard of.
So
and
basically, like the Russian mafia.
He's the hero of capitalism in Russia, but only for a little bit. He basically just made an idiot out of one of the biggest mobsters in Russia.
Does it say by name who that individual was?
He did, in fact, but on one hand I don't remember. On the other hand, he might kill us. So he's still here. I'm just kidding. Anyway,
Okay.
to proceed, he eventually he was pursuing all these companies, but now that he's making fools and idiots and losing money and taking away basically the money of these oligarchs, Putin is getting mad because now he's literally stealing Putin's money.
Does Putin have a lot of money?
Putin. The reason why Putin has money is that officially his state salary, I think, is around $143,000. Which, ask anybody on Earth, that is not true. This is not true.
Yeah.
He's the richest.
Yeah, doesn't he have 8 mansions?
He has the biggest yacht in the world.
Yachts.
Yeah, he's
technically worth Billions?
He's the richest political figure in the world.
How much
Not
do you think
royalty.
he's worth?
Not royalty. I think at least $1 trillion. Given how much money his connections with the Saudis.
Is that a low or highest? What's the low and high? What's the range?
That's kind of a high.
That's kind of
That's
high.
kind of a high.
Low, like 200 billion,
Yeah,
300
because
billion.
the Saudis, the Saudis even more have money than him. Like, objectively, or no, subjectively, like, depending on how you look at it, the Saudis might be in, like, the multiple trillions, depending on how much money, because of, basically, they own everything. In the whole
Yeah,
region.
I remember seeing a report on they have an oil company and they just went public, and I think don't quote me on this, but I think their income for like 1 year, their revenue or was it profit was like 200-300 billion.
Yeah, that's
something
ridiculous.
stupid. I think it was their profit. It was like
Can you imagine
stupid high.
that? 300 billion. That's ridiculous.
Yeah, in
That's
a
not
year.
Even, that's not even conceivable. I
Yeah.
can't even imagine that.
Yeah, that's crazy.
That much money, like,
That's
that's
unfathomable.
ridiculous.
All right. Continue with the story.
Anyway, so he makes fools out of these Putin's little slaves. Yeah, I would use that. You know what's funny?
Yeah,
he
we're gonna
calls
watch
it
out
that
for
in the
that.
book. He
Oh,
calls them that.
really?
In the book,
That's funny.
Putin's little.
Great minds think alike.
Yeah, it was super funny, and Putin hates him now, and he wishes to control the the whole Russian market. Basically, he sends the FSB, the K department, after Browder. I can go much more into detail, but we've been dragging on a little
Yeah.
bit. Basically, he sends the FSB after Browder.
FSB, it's like
FSB, basically the KGB.
KGB,
And
basically.
even before that, the NKVD, which
Okay.
is the worst part of Russia government, worst part of law enforcement, the people you fear at night when you sleep
Got
in
it.
Russia.
Got it.
He sent the KGB after him. And this sect of the KGB is the kind that actually kills people. Suddenly, he was getting hit with like tax fraud claims from the government, which obviously weren't true, but if you're in Russia, you can't win. So he was getting hit with tax fraud claims. And suddenly he was getting death threats. His lawyers, they'd be working, and his offices got raided, and his lawyers would be
Dang.
working, and they get texts from unknown caller, like very few numbers in the world can text with no number. Calling, yes, but texting, no. You can't do that.
So they're getting death threats.
They're getting death threats from untraceable numbers.
Damn, that's scary.
And the craziest one, this is what made me almost like this put goosebumps in my arms. One of their lawyers, he was working up late at night, and he gets a text, and he goes, "We watch you when you sleep, and if there's anything history has taught us is that anybody can be killed, and we're looking at you." Then next day, that lawyer, he texts Browder. He's like, "Bro, we're in trouble. We got to get out of Russia."
Of course, yeah, I would
So
leave instantly.
Browder is evacuating all of his lawyers from Russia, all of his men, all of his boys, his.
So it's basically him against the
Yeah.
Russian government. So they're out to get him.
Yeah.
Why doesn't he just leave?
He does. He
does,
actually, his
okay.
visa got canceled. So
Of course.
he had to be out of Russia, and now all of his lawyers, he's trying to evacuate them all.
Okay.
He only had one that refused escaping. And there was three. There was Edward, there was Simon, and there was Sergey. Edward and Simon, they both, every day they would wake up with their families, and they would see black S-classes right outside their doors. And they would, literally every single day, they would see these guys in suits just walking around their house. And they would walk around the neighborhood, but they weren't pretending. Like they knew exactly
They
what
knew
were
who
for.
they were messing
Right
with.
after that, they got their passports dipped out of Russia.
Oh yeah, I would do that, no question.
And suddenly, the final guy, Sergey, I might be wrong on who got the text, but Sergey, he gets a text on his, or I think an email, and it's from the FSB, and there's this Gulag song from all way back when, from all the way in the Soviet era. They had a Gulag song about the prisoners singing on their basically on their train ride to death. They would sing this song as they rode to their
That's
death.
so creepy. What was it? How did it go?
And it basically, I don't know how exactly it goes in Russian. I literally tried Googling, I couldn't find it. It goes, "Trains, through the night we roll. Trains, we never stop, we will die." And they texted the lawyer this thing. I think it goes along those lines, that song.
Okay.
They texted the lawyer, the FSB, can you imagine that? Made a joke about death, about the KGB.
So they're making
that's
all this.
ridiculous.
They're making all this money. They're having difficulty, trouble. They're being pursued by the FSB, getting death threats. People are stalking them. All this crazy stuff. All for money. Is that even worth it at the end? I mean, yeah, you want to make a lot of. They're making billions of dollars, but in the end, was it worth it for them?
The way Putin works is that he gets what he wants, right? Putin, no matter what, at least he gets what he wants based on his abilities.
Yeah.
It being how many people he can just bribe to lie.
Okay, that's interesting.
So,
how does it end? How does all this end at that?
Basically, among many other things, he goes to Davos, Switzerland. He meets with George Soros and all these billionaire investors. He's a big name now in the world, and everybody knows about him. Everybody knows about his struggle now. This is worldwide news. A couple years ago, this would have been on the news. This is like stuff you'd read on your phone.
Okay.
And now, his lawyer Sergey, they get taken by the police. Basically, long story short, beaten to death in a cell.
Beaten to death.
Beaten to death, but he was suffering from I think kidney stones, but for like 10 months. So imagine, people are like on the brink of death after like a day, just suffering. This guy was for 10 months. He refused to sign.
Oh my God.
He refused to sign the papers saying that he was guilty of fraud. Him and Bill Browder, Sergei Magnitsky was his name. This lawyer, Sergei Magnitsky, refused to sign the papers saying that he was guilty of tax fraud.
Okay.
He refused until the moment he died. And that's crazy.
That's a strong will, man.
That's crazy,
That's
man.
crazy.
He was really devoted to Christ, by the way.
Okay.
In his letters, Bill Browder doesn't emphasize this too much, but it's very important. I feel like it should have been emphasized more. He prayed every day, the guy said. Every day he'd pray, and he would just like beg God, please. Like, even if I don't live, just make sure they never win. Which they didn't. They almost did. But
Okay.
anyway, he dies, and this Browder pursues international, like he begs the White House. He gets lobbyists to talk to John McCain. And long story short, I can go really into detail about where he went, who he talked to. Long story short, he got a bill passed called the Sergei Magnitsky Act, and everybody in Congress supported it. Like, this is one of the few things in recent memory where everybody supported it. Basically, Sergei Magnitsky Act, it banned Russian oligarchs with known ties to like the mob, with known ties to crime. It banned them from entering the United States. It seized all their assets too and auctioned them off. Can you imagine something more insulting to a Russian oligarch than like having everything in the United States that you own just taken? Because before this, the United States was like Russia's playground. Even today, you see people.
You see a bunch of those.
You see
Russians
with way too much money that they didn't get it legit.
Oh yeah,
they're watching this podcast.
They're watching this. Send and kill them right now.
Yeah, they're watching this podcast and they hated this. Especially the millionaires. So the investigators that were investigating Browder, they got their money taken away from him. So funny, man. And this was his payback.
Okay.
So Putin, this is now reaching towards the end of the story. This is now current day events. Putin has reached a point where the United States has passed a bill in a very unprecedented way, because this is during the Obama administration, and Obama was basically was playing a very safe game with Putin. He kind of appealed everything Putin did because he really didn't want to piss him off. But this act really pissed off Putin. So then Putin didn't know how to respond. He accused everybody of being liars. He made a fool of himself in front of international police, Interpol. He issued a red notice for Bill Browder, which nobody took seriously.
The name of the book?
Nobody ever, which by the way is the name of the book. He never, ever got arrested, by the way. Nobody in the world took Putin seriously. He was a big fool now. This is one of the big reasons behind G8, behind Russia being dropped out of G8. It's basically Putin's fault. Mm-hmm. Anyway, he decides, okay, there's only one way to put a moral cost on this victory. There's only one way to make this victory a loss for the Americans that just, that took away our money. He enacted a bill. He basically BS'd, and Russia has a Congress, by the way, called the Duma, which is fake. It's just owned by Putin, basically. He owns everything. He's the czar. Like, for real. He's the modern-day czar. He passes a bill where, basically, Americans cannot adopt Russian orphans. And if there's anything we know about Russians, they love babies. Like, especially babies. Many of them. So even Russians hated this act so much. At least over there, they love like orphans. They love Americans buying orphans back then.
Okay.
That's what I meant.
So what was the whole premise of that? Why would he do something like that? That just sounds
He wanted to put a moral.
petty.
He wanted to put a moral and like ethical cost to Browder's victory. Because he could say like anybody in America before that point could say like, wow, this Browder guy, he's done a good thing. But now Putin has made it so that way every time you think of the good things Browder did, now you have to
Think
remember.
about the negatives.
Now you have to remember there's like millions of like Russian kids like starving with like rich American families willing to adopt, but they can't. Long story short, to conclude, it's a crazy journey that Bill Browder took, and I really could go on even longer about how he had meetings with guys that were actually in the KGB that tried to poison him, or the time that he was being investigated, or he launched an investigation onto the people who accused him of tax fraud, and then the people investigating that investigation were the people that accused him of tax fraud. Crazy stuff.
Okay.
I could go on for much longer. but-
Okay, Mr. Andrew, thank you for having you here on the, man, I can't even talk. Thank you for having us on the podcast. It's really interesting talking to you about the book. A lot of great ideas, and it's really interesting how much information you get to learn by just reading. So we always advise everyone to read. If you have any ideas or any books
Always
you want us
read.
to share or any topics
Always
you want
read.
to talk about, yeah, give us a shout out, like our stuff, give us a follow. It kind of helps our algorithm. So if you can do that, turn on the bell notification just to make sure you're following us and what we're doing. And swoogity swoogity swag, stay cool. Yeah, you guys have yourself a good night.
Good night. Sure.